When it comes to following the God of Israel, what should non-Israelites do? In Acts 15, the apostles and the elders in the Jerusalem Council discussed what they thought was required of Gentiles who were turning to God. Under the leadership of James, they decided on 4 things: to abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, from blood, from what is strangled, and from sexual immorality. There was no question regarding what Jewish followers of Jesus would do, because naturally they would continue to do Torah. But where did the idea for these prohibitions for Gentiles in the Apostolic Decree come from? Well, first it's worth asking, does the Torah contain commands that specifically relate to non-Israelites? And the answer is yes, it does. Starting right back at the very first commandments given to the nation of Israel in Exodus 12. Regarding the festival of unleavened bread, the warning not to eat leaven during this festival is directed to both native Israelites and the stranger. The Hebrew word ger is used here, and I'll continue to use that because the translations are often unhelpful. The term stranger seems to convey the wrong idea. Alien or foreigner are often used too, but there's a separate Hebrew word for foreigner anyway, so that can really confuse things. The ger are not just non-Israelites. They are non-Israelites who have in some way attached themselves to the Israelites and to the God of Israel. And the ger being included in various commandments is a repeated theme throughout the Torah. Another example is the Sabbath command in the 10 Commandments in both Exodus and Deuteronomy. This includes the ger in the list of those who are not to work on the Sabbath. The Saturday Sabbath being, of course, a fundamental command for those who follow the God of Israel. Check out my previous video on the Sabbath if you haven't seen it yet. So the Torah has various commandments that specifically relate to the ger, non-Israelites who have attached themselves to the God of Israel. But is there anywhere in the Torah where commands that apply to the ger correlate to the prohibitions in the Apostolic Decree? Well, it turns out there might be. The Holiness Code is a highly significant section of Leviticus that starts at chapter 17 and runs for several chapters. If you start reading from the beginning of the Holiness Code, you can see that 4 of the commands that specifically relate to the ger seem to correlate with the prohibitions in Acts 15 and even occur in the same order. The first mention of ger in the Holiness Code is in Leviticus chapter 17 verse 8, which outlaws sacrifices that have not been brought before God for both the Israelites and the ger, in contrast to the idolatrous sacrifices mentioned in the previous verse. This correlates to the first prohibition in Acts 15 verse 29. The second command of the Holiness Code that applies to both the Israelites and the ger is the command not to consume blood in verses 10 and 12, which is also the second prohibition in the Apostolic Decree. Third, in Leviticus 17 verse 13, comes the instruction to properly drain the blood of a hunted animal for both the Israelites and the ger. This could correlate to the third prohibition in the Apostolic Decree, since it is in contrast to other cultures that have apparently used strangulation to slaughter animals for the very reason of retaining blood in the meat. And finally, on to Leviticus chapter 18, which lists a multitude of sexual sins, with verse 26 stating that they apply to both the Israelites and the ger, which would cover the final prohibition put forward in the Jerusalem Council. I first came across the idea of the connection between the Apostolic Decree and Leviticus 17 and 18 in this article by Clinton Wallen, which I referenced in my video regarding Peter's vision, but the connection has been suggested by many different people. If this idea is correct, then a clear directive from the Torah on what non-Israelites should be doing is being utilized by the Jerusalem Council. The commands that apply to the ger in the Torah certainly extend beyond the 4 prohibitions in the Apostolic Decree, as we've seen with commandments relating to biblical festivals and the Sabbath. But the 4 that they list seem to be commandments that are necessary to do absolutely immediately, as opposed to others that can be learnt as people progress. Jacob Milgrom has an excellent essay in the JPS Torah commentary on Numbers, where he shows the Ger were generally required to observe prohibitive ritual commandments, but not performative ones, which I might come back to in a future video. It makes sense to me that the Jerusalem Council would choose to base their instructions to the Gentiles on what the Torah already instructs non-Israelites to do. But of course, all this is just my opinion, so definitely let me know what you think in the comments, and please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.